Here's a script for the monologue. By the way, did you know that you could take a furniture making class at MIT?
That sounds ridiculous.
But it's MIT. You could probably make a lot of money from it.
Does nobody want this table? I didn't go to MIT for nothing.
I think I'll just stick to show business.
It's the Light Bell! With the cold open starring Sarah Hunter. Special guest starring Mrs. Paxton and Miss Hartfield. And creative writing by Nick Rasool. And now, right from his basement, it's your host, Robert Hunter!
Welcome everyone, the bell has rung, class has begun, please take your seats. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm glad to see that everyone's enjoying their summer so far, since we only have like a month and a half or so before we're back at the grindstone. Yes. But now is the time to sit back, go to the park, stay inside with a bunch of Fortnite addicts, or if none of that's really your speed, catching up with some good old books at the library. Speaking of, apparently some libraries in the nation are throwing out the books and moving towards a more online tech focus instead of the old paper and ink approach. To which my only response is, what? You can't do that. A bookless library is basically like a meatless steak or a useful test. And by test, I mean standardized exam, of course. The dean of the College of Fine Arts at the University of Texas in particular has decided to strip their main floor of their library of all its books to make room for new devices and computers. The books can still be checked out, but some are being stored hours away and may take days to get once someone requests it, which does make for a good excuse. Well, I'm sorry, Professor, but this time my report's not late because my dog ate my paper. It's because the library was all out of books. Because my dog ate all the ones that were left. Some students have held protests, so the dean decided to create a task force to appease the protesters, and renovations for more shelf room have started. Except that the same thing is happening in other libraries and schools. Florida Polytechnic Universities is one that doesn't have a single book in their library. It's all digital. The director of the library, Catherine Miller, even said, "We strongly encourage our students to read and work with information digitally." Oh, you know how you can always trust everything you hear on the internet. Like, I just heard from a bunch of scientists that the Earth is actually flat and the government is lying to us. Thanks, college. But the biggest problem with a bookless library is simply that, as an NPR article states, most content is simply not available digitally to license and purchase. It just isn't the most viable option. In fact, the Santa Rosa Branch Library in Tucson, Arizona tried to go bookless in 2002, but ended up backtracking because of the public's demand for physical books. You know, here on the Light Bell, we talk a lot about education, but not really much about college, aside from that whole bookless library thing. So tonight, we're debuting our newest segment. This is College Incorporated. Did you know that you can take college courses in the science of Harry Potter? Yes, Potterheads, it's your dream come true. Or maybe your nightmare if you want to keep the magic real. This course teaches students the physics of the wand and is offered at Frostburg State University in Maryland, which I believe is named after the time when Frosty the Snowman accidentally sank the Titanic. But if fiction really isn't your style, you can learn how to start a revolution. Yes, for all those of you who always wanted to overthrow society in some way, Ohio State has you covered. This entire class devotes itself to studying different revolutionary movements and events in order to analyze their successful traits of a revolution. Now, I believe this class is also only taught in French. But if you're looking for a more physically challenging class, look no further than underwater basket weaving, which I don't think really needs an explanation. It's exactly what it sounds like. Now, this has been happening at Reed College in Oregon since the 1980s, and apparently the University of Arizona tried to have a snorkeling basket contest in 1998. No, not just an underwater snorkeling basket contest. There's a very big difference there. Although it fell apart, I'm assuming because it's kind of hard to find large bodies of water in Arizona. But all this reminds me that aside from hosting the Late Bell, I'm also the proud dean of Dump University. Now, you might think we're cheap because we use Times New Roman in our logo. But let me assure you that we take pride in offering students quality education. See, we're part of the Poison Ivy League, a very prestigious league of generic East Coast schools with ivy-covered Gothic buildings that, as our tour guides like to say, resemble Hogwarts. And let me assure you, they don't say that just because we're actually pretty boring and just want something interesting to say. Since our historic founding days ago when I decided to write this into the monologue, we've offered premium courses in subjects such as the philosophy of Lord of the Rings, skydiving blanket sewing, how to stop a revolution as taught by King Louis XVI, how to be a good Minecraft YouTuber, ghost busting, picture hanging, guillotine making, which coincides with the whole how to stop a revolution thing, how to make a show with a budget of $0, and finally, how to remove all the books from your library. We've got a great show for you all. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined now by Mrs. Paxton. Mrs. Paxton, welcome.
Welcome.
All right, so tell us a bit about yourself to start off.
Ms. Paxton, I teach AP Environmental Science here at Chattahoochee High School. I've been here for 12 plus years.
So how is your class structured, and how do you keep students engaged in the learning?
Well, especially in the type of AP classes where we have to get through a lot of material, I find that it is actually most efficient to get through them with a teacher-led classroom, and I know that that's not really the most popular of opinions today. But I do appreciate it when you I can kind of engage the kids by tying back relevancy to their lives, kind of getting into more of the teenage mindset and then bringing it forth to the curriculum that I'm trying to, talk about and try to break in relevancy to their everyday life.
So what exactly do you mean by the teenage mindset?
I don't know. And that is something that I keep, sometimes I try things where it fails, where I'll try to tie it back to movies or music or just, when you're getting your car kind of stories or maybe anything that's, kind of going viral, whatever that means. I try to figure out what they're into. And I'm not sure what that mindset is, and a lot of times I don't connect well.
But you said you try to use that mindset
Yes.
as well. So
to help engage their learning, help them get more interested, help them, kind of spark that interest that makes them feel like this class actually matters in their actual everyday life.
So are you familiar with the flipped classroom concept? What are your opinions on it? Have you ever tried it?
Well, the flipped classroom, yeah, I'm very familiar with it. It was kind of going to be a big thing here. The problem with the flipped classroom, and I'm not a big fan of it, because again, I believe that a teacher teaches, guides definitely, but so I'm a little bit old school when it comes to the thought process that a lot of times with the flipped classroom, you have to rely on students to do a lot of the work outside of class. And then if they don't do it outside of class, you still have to catch them up once they get to the class. And then you end up spending your time trying to get everybody on the same page, kind of lining up with the same curriculum and the same standards when it's not necessarily aligned, because some kids do stuff at home, some kids do stuff in class, some kids are not able to handle a student-centered classroom the way that the flipped classroom kind of demands.
Mm-hmm. But you never tried it yourself, have you?
No.
All right, so many educators advocate for more individualized teaching. What are some of the benefits and potential problems with this?
Well, the benefits of personalized learning is huge. The kids today, they have to feel tied to it. They have to feel tethered to the curriculum you're trying to teach. And in our society, everything's individualized. I mean, everything's kind of very specific to each person and their interests. So that as a teacher, we have to engage a kid by finding out what their interest is, what their motivation is, how what they're capable of, and what they're what I need to rise them and their expectations to be, because everybody's expectations are different, everybody's learning style is different. So I really like the idea of personalized learning. Of course, from our point of view, the difficulties are going to come from the assessment value. As we try to assess each person's like personalized learning style or individualized learning style, that can be very difficult. It's also incredibly difficult for us to meet each one of their expectations and what they need. So I'm not sure if it can be implemented the way we need to. The biggest problem with personalized learning is class size. I mean, if you had a class of 12 kids or 20 kids, you can personalize the learning, you can individualize, you can spend the time on each one of them. If you have a class of 30, 33, you can lump kids in individualized and personalized styles and groups, but you're not going to be able to implement and execute each of those kids' actual tasks.
All right, so lastly, when you teach, what do you ultimately expect students to take away and or apply in their future careers?
Well, I hope that we're not just teaching a curriculum, we're also teaching them to become adults, and that we're hoping to teach them to take away, how to work in a team. That's why we do some things, how to contribute, how to be respectful, how to, think for themselves, how to critically think, how to, be told a certain amount of instructions and follow through on their own, how to take information from somebody and figure out how to manipulate it so that it makes sense to them through whatever device that works best in their world. So I'm hoping that you just you teach kids to become adults. And that's the most, takeaway as far as like responsibility and, moral development.
Yep. All right, that's all the time we have. Miss Paxton, everyone. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm joined now by Miss Hartfield. Miss Hartfield, welcome.
Nice to be here.
So tell us a bit about yourself to start off.
I always knew I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was 6 or 7. I had a little brother who was 4.5 years younger than me. I started teaching him to read when he was 3. I started teaching him math. By the time he started kindergarten, he was reading and doing math on the 5th grade level. And I thought, oh my God, I am the greatest teacher. He's actually very bright, and that's why it happened. But it inspired me. I went to State University of New York, got a degree in English, knew I wanted to be an English teacher, and came to Georgia, and I went to Emory, got my master's degree, became an English teacher. Started off in high school, did that for 12 years, and then I found my true passion, which is middle school, because it's just fun every single day.
All right, so you've taught students from grade 6 to like freshman college. What are some of the things that you do to adapt your teaching to such a broad range of students?
I think you need to make it more fun in middle school grades. A lot more group activities. There has to be a time in every class where they get to talk and discuss what you're teaching. Not as much in high school. High school students are more focused. They know what they want. You can do occasional lectures, but they also seem to do very well with group work. But they're more capable of knowing what they want to research, and as a result, it's more individualized because they know what they want.
So you do a bit more like teacher-led discussions or teaching in middle school versus high school?
No, actually teacher-led discussions is more in high school. More guidance is in middle school because they need all that social activity. High school, I can lecture for 10, 15 minutes and then let them go off and do what they need to do. Whether it's group or individualized, I can point them in the right direction. Middle school, give them a little hint, and they have to have fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, so are you familiar with the flipped classroom concept? What are your opinions on it, and have you ever tried it yourself?
I took a class in flipped classrooms, and I love the concept, but I tried it in my class, and it did not work. I tried it 2 or 3 times. Students would watch the instruction and come back completely confused, and I would have to start from scratch and teach the whole lesson. So for me, it actually wasted time because they didn't really grasp the concept. I think it would work better in high school Or maybe it would work better in math, but it did not work well in language arts and in English.
Yeah, and I've talked to some teachers, and even in high school, and they've said that, it really doesn't work that all too well. I'm not saying that like you can't do it at all, but also in their experience, it hasn't worked so well. Would you say that flipped classrooms maybe kind of like a fad, or?
Yeah, I think it might be a fad in that if you know what you're doing, and if it works for your class, it's amazing. But it's not the right thing for everyone. So, like so many teaching methods, you take the best. And if it works for you and what you're teaching, then it's something you should continue to do. I don't like to use the word fad. I think it's just a new technique. And like all techniques, it works for some, it doesn't work for others. The joy of teaching is you get to decide for yourself what you want to do.
But you could use it in like combination with other techniques as
well.
well.
I think you could. Depends again on all those other factors.
Yeah. So many educators advocate for more individualized teaching. What are some of the benefits and potential problems with this?
Well, if you have 100 students, there's no way you can plan to individualize 100 lesson plans every single day. It's just impossible. But there are times that students would benefit from individualized learning. So when students have laptops in their classroom, each student can work on something different. Or in a group setting, the group can decide what each student is working on and bring it all together and contribute. When I teach writing, I've had students, as they get to a certain place, put their name on the board, and you have a list of names, and I just work with whosever name is on top. When they're done, they cross their name out. I go to the next student. Every student tells me what they need, what they're looking for. And that has worked very successfully for me.
So looking back on your years teaching, since you're retired now, how would you assess your performance? And do you have anything to say to new teachers or teachers that are fairly on in their careers?
I think the two things I've learned that are most important is my job as a teacher is to make my students successful. If they're not successful, I am not doing a good job. And the second thing is to have fun every single day. The more fun, the more students will work hard. And they will. They will work so hard if they're enjoying what they're doing. And additionally, for me personally, every single year I learned to become a better teacher. One area of my teaching I would work on and make sure it was better and better so that I was always improving and I was always bringing something new to my teaching and making it more interesting, making it more valuable, honing my own personal skills. In terms of new teachers, I would say do not become a teacher unless you absolutely love it. Teaching is a calling, it's a passion, and without it you can't do a good job. Make sure that you're having fun. Make sure that your students are having fun. Make sure that every single year you're getting better, you're improving, you're learning more so that you can bring that to the classroom. It's a true joy to do what I've done for so many years if you know how to bring fun and laughter and passion and excellence into your classroom.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's all the time we have. Ms. Hartfield, everyone. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Education is a tool we use to develop younger generations into decent members of society. We use it to pass down knowledge, to instill an understanding of humanity, and at times to instill morals. However, it appears that many of us have been progressively moving away from a genuine interest in learning, and have progressed instead towards a desire for a simple grade. A grade, a symbol that represents how much a student passed or failed a class, has become the cornerstone for many students' academic careers, and for some, their entire self-being. The topics learned and discussed mean little when the grade attributed to the individual is not up to their standards. We have begun to view ourselves and our self-image based upon our grades, based upon numbers, and we have begun to view ourselves as numbers. So many of us seem to have fallen to this intense desire for the highest grade available, all so that we might be able to pay to apply to a school, so that we can have a chance of doing it all again. We judge others based on their grades, looking down on or up to, people based on what numbers they have in a few classes that may not even matter later in life. The colleges and universities we covet so dearly view us as numbers because it is simplistic. Why must we view each other as such? That's all the time we have. Thank you for watching. Have a good night, everyone.